The panel will be dedicated to transparent and accountable local governance, major principles, success stories, and lessons learned. This panel aims to discuss the importance of transparency, good governance principles, and citizen participation in improving local governance and implementing decentralization reform. Good practices from different countries, regions will be discussed during the panel, especially successful participatory tools to proactively share information with the public and get them engaged in the decision-making process at the local level. So we have the very international panel as the second panel. The panel will be moderated by Mr. Mikhail Darchiashvili, subnational capacity expert, USAID Georgia Local Governance Program. Mr. Darchiashvili has over 20 years of professional experience in international development, international relations, and defense policy, including as a senior government official from March 2015 to April 2022. Mr. Darchiashvili worked as the USAID Good Governance Initiative Program in Georgia as a governance program manager, and we have been cooperating through this program, and we are still very much cooperating, and we will be happy to continue this very productive and fruitful cooperation. So, Mikhail, the floor is yours. Please invite your panelists, and we can start the second panel. As planned, please use your time, and wish you success for the second panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Georgi. Thank you very much. I want to greet all participants online and on-site. It is my pleasure to moderate this afternoon's panel and to discuss, I would say, sacrosanct elements of democratic governance, transparency, accountability, and citizen participation. And frankly, I couldn't have even imagined the better panel and better speakers. Unfortunately, I don't see my panelists here, but I'll try to briefly introduce all of them. We have significant time constraints. We have only 1 hour and 5 speakers, so I'll try to not to keep you long, so we'll try to stick to the timelines. We have speakers from different parts of the world, and I'm pleased to introduce Helen Derbyshire, Executive Director, Access Info Europe, Madrid, and I think we should congratulate Helen for her re-election as the chair of the UN CAC Coalition. This is a network that coordinates civil society activities in monitoring and promoting the UN Convention Against Corruption. We have Andy Williamson, Council of Europe experts in participatory and digital democracy. Irakli Kotetishvili is joining us from Istanbul, from UNDP Regional Hub. Irakli is a policy specialist on anti-corruption and the public administration issues. Dear friend Jose Maria Marin, Senior Program Officer at the OGP Local, and last but not least, Tamar Glonti, Founder and Director of the Institute for Change and Innovation, local CSO based in Ozurgeti Municipality, Georgia. So I'll make one round of questions to all speakers, then I'll open up the floor for the Q&A session for the on-site as well as online participants, and I hope our colleagues from the IDFI will help me to collect online questions, and then we're going to voice them. Well, I would like to start my panel with the famous quote of 28th President of the United States, Woodrow Wilson, who once very remarkably noted that government ought to be all outside and no inside. And I think in this room we can all agree that government should be transparent, accountable, collaborative, participatory. However, this is more like our wish list. And in real terms, we observe quite inverse trends at the local level, as well as at the central level in Georgia, in other parts of the world. Today's political context is characterized by political polarization, mistrust in politicians and governments, as well as fellow citizens. these challenges are further amplified by the populism and waves of uninterrupted disinformation and propaganda. And of course, today, we'll realize that we need to come up with very creative solutions to promote citizen participation, accountability, and transparency. With that, I would like to bring in our speakers into the discussion. And first question goes to Andy Williamson. Andy, you recently commissioned a very interesting report which is called Mapping Deliberative Democracy in Council of Europe Member States, which provides conceptual overview as well as outlines key principles for successful deliberative initiatives. Can you please give us a better sense about the concept of deliberative democracy, and also what are the enablers needed to make sure that this concept works effectively at the local level? And the floor is yours, or it will be correct to say web is yours, please.
Thank you, Michael. Good afternoon, everybody. Very nice to join you today. I think I'd like to frame deliberative democracy in a sense as it's one of the tools in the toolbox that we have to make democracy work better. It's not a silver bullet, it's not the solution, but if we're able to use these tools, then we're able to increase the range of opportunities we have. Now, what do we mean by deliberative democracy? Well, you know, we can mean anything by it, and this is one of the challenges, but let's break it down. What we really mean when we talk about it from a positive perspective is we want to be able to get people together to talk about the problems that affect their lives and come up with solutions by hearing as much as they can about it, having conversations and evolving their thoughts about what the solutions might be. So it's a non-prescriptive method, it's a fully engaged method. It's a way of bringing people together who would not normally be part of the decision-making process. And this is key. It's about bringing in fresh, new voices that look and sound and act like the population around them. Now, that's great, but it's challenging to do because we don't have experience of it. And particularly in a democratic culture where citizens are used to, if they're lucky, voting and getting who they voted for, and then those people just go off and make decisions, and decisions drop down from on high. Deliberation is a new way of thinking. You're empowered. But let's turn it on its head. If you're one of those elected representatives, or if you're a senior government official, actually you need a culture shift as well, because you have to be prepared to hear different voices and listen to what's being said. So if we think of some examples of where this has been used, Ireland is a case that's usually cited when we talk about citizens' assemblies, which is one form of deliberative democracy. And in particular, Ireland has used these to convene conversations about socially challenging or controversial subjects, so divorce, abortion, such things as that, which actually left to politicians could be decided, but they never quite feel resolved. So the idea of the Citizens' Assembly is to gather a representative group of citizens, get them to discuss the issues in detail by hearing evidence and having long conversations over a sustained period of time, a matter of weeks or even months, and then to come up with some recommendations. And the key reason I'm using Ireland as this example rather than one other is, particularly in the case of controversial referendums, the civil servants who then draft legislation that's going to be put to a referendum of the public to decide what that law change should be, are instructed that they have to draft the recommendations based on the findings of the Citizens' Assembly. They don't just get to go, oh yeah, that happened and now I'll make up whatever it was I wanted to do in the first place, because that's not democracy. So we've got to make sure when we do deliberative democracy that we have this full connected cycle of hearing, deciding, listening to things, reviewing it, coming up with findings, pushing that into the system, and the system takes it on board and as an output at the end that reflects what was said in that public deliberation. So, you know, it's not just about let's run a citizens' assembly, it's about changing the culture of democracy to be more receptive and responsive to what it's hearing. And also changing the level of civic education we do, though, so that people can be prepared to get involved in deliberation. So I'll leave it at that to start with, but I'm happy to come back and talk about that more.
Thank you, Andy. It's really, really interesting to hear. I wish we could have more time to dive deep into the deliberative democracy, but I'm sure during the Q&A session you will get many questions from the audience. Everybody knows that corruption thrives in secret places and avoids public places, and we believe it's fair presumption that secrecy means impropriety. These are words, again, of 28th President of the United States, Woodrow Wilson. Helen, you've been a very strong advocate of access to the public information, and you've spared a number of years advocating for this very important element of the transparency and accountability of the governments. Can we say that the tireless efforts of your organization and other anti-corruption activists to help to promote access to the public information produces significant results? What are the current trends in Europe? And also, what are the information, public information, that needs to be open and accessible in order to effectively fight corruption at the local government level?
Thanks very much. Good morning from Madrid, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon there, I guess, in Tbilisi. Can you hear me okay? Yes?
Yes, we do.
It's great. It's great to be joining you. It's great to be joining. I think that Jose Maria Marin from the OGP program will talk about OGP local, but I just want to note that Spain and Georgia, I think, are the only two European countries with 6 OGP local members. So that's something that our two countries have in common. And it's also great to be talking to friends and colleagues in Georgia, which I first visited to work on the draft access to information law back in 1996. So it's a place I know well and know the struggles that you've had for achieving open government over the years. In terms of the question, Miguel, about the sort of general trends, I would say that we've done very well in those last, let's say, sort of 25 or so years, the last couple of decades. The right of access to information has been recognized as a fundamental right linked to freedom of expression. We can't form and express an opinion if we don't have information. Every single country in the Council of Europe region now has something that they call an access to information law, although some are stronger than others. We have at the European level, the Council of Europe again, we have something called the Tromsø Convention, which is the Convention on Access to Official Documents, which sets out the minimum standards. That's great. I know that Georgia is looking at the possibility of signing and ratifying the convention. The Council of Europe's been working on that, and I very much encourage you to do so, even if that does mean some reform to your legal framework to bring it fully into line with the best practices in the European region. So in terms of recognizing this right, we've done well. In terms of the information that we need to combat corruption, I would say it's more of a mixed picture. It's certain that we've got, Woodrow Wilson, he said it, and that wasn't that recently, right? We certainly got the recognition of what needs to be done. The challenge is actually doing it. We have various anti-corruption instruments, such as the UN Convention Against Corruption, and I'm also currently a chair of the UNCAP coalition, the coalition of NGOs working to implement that convention. But the reality is that in many countries, not all the corruption prevention measures with their transparency components, not all of them have yet been implemented. On Friday of this week, Access Info is going to be launching the European EU level report for the Global Data Barometer, which is looking at what data we actually have in the public domain. We've looked at data that we need for integrity work. And what we can see is that we've made progress on some things, such as spending data. We've got a 65% average score across the EU region. Well, that's good, but 65% isn't a super high score, but that was the highest score for integrity information. The lowest score in the EU region was just 18% for lobbying data. That's really poor. We still don't have enough information about who is having an influence on decisions. And I think this links very much to what Andy Williamson was saying about, you know, we know how to do deliberative democracy participation, but if we don't have the information that we need, not through these more structured processes, but for so many decisions that are taken, if we don't have the information that we need to be able to participate, that's an issue, that's a challenge. And just to finish this sort of brief introduction, we're seeing right now a massive scandal erupting at the level of the European Union. We've got members of the European Parliament who are in jail and assistants and former MEPs, a bribery scandal, and suddenly yesterday we have the President of the Commission coming out and saying, oh, we need to have more ethics regulation. We need greater transparency. Well, this is something that civil society has been proposing for a long time. We've proposed ethics regulation, transparency of members of the European Parliament, their expenses, greater mandatory transparency of lobbying. These are all proposals that are in the international standards. They're being advocated for by civil society. I find it a great shame that we wait until there is a scandal to act, when we could have known that eventually there will be a scandal. So perhaps one of my messages for this conversation and debate today is, shall we act now, or shall we just wait until the next scandal comes along to put in place all these transparency measures, which, Chair, as you said, are things that we've known about for quite a long time, bring many public benefits. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. It's really important to hear your voice from Madrid, and I think we'll be anxiously awaiting your global data barometer this Friday. In fact,
Friday, come along.
Friday,
look on our website.
definitely.
You can find the info about joining.
Thank you. So when we hear words transparency and accountability, the first thing that comes to my mind is fight against corruption. And Iraq, to bring you into the discussion, we are all aware that UNDP has been very actively working with local governments to strengthen their anti-corruption credentials, and you've been using the methodology which we all know by the name Islands of Integrity, and you also worked with Georgian municipality, Kutaisi, if I'm not wrong. Can you walk us through your efforts in support of the municipalities and highlight success stories as well as challenges you encountered while working with subnational governments? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mikhail. Can you just confirm you can hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you loud
right.
and clear.
Great. Thanks so much. And I'm really sorry that you're the only one on the podium right now, and have to moderate all remote panel. I wish we were there in Tbilisi together with you. But without any further ado, let me just very briefly share my screen and walk you through some of the initiatives and projects that we have been involved in concerning strengthening the integrity on the local levels. But before I do that, let me also thank IDFI and Georgi Kliashvili for the opportunity to speak at this very interesting and inspiring event. So without further ado, let me share my screen. Okay, I hope you can see the screen on your end. So what I'm going to talk about today, and I hope the 5 minutes time slot will be enough for that. And just stop me, Mikhail, anytime if I misuse my time. So UNDP has been implementing the Islands of Integrity methodology in Armenia, Georgia, Moldova, North Macedonia, and Ukraine in the last several years. But before we go into the details, let's just first talk about what is the Islands of Integrity methodology. It was first developed in La Paz, Bolivia, by the city mayor back then. as the city was facing severe corruption problems related to public procurement mainly. It was so successful that it got disseminated in more than 30 cities and municipalities all across the world. Now, the key steps in the process is the selection of the municipality in a specific country, identification of key stakeholders, government officials, the CSOs, the media. So creating the coalition and then conducting corruption risk assessment and adoption of the integrity action plans. So in Kutaisi, you have just mentioned, Mikhail, Kutaisi municipality was one of the municipalities where we have piloted this methodology in our region. So what we did basically, we have consulted our offices first in all these countries to identify the municipality which is willing, first of all, to carry out this assessment process and be partner with us in terms of identification of corruption risks and then developing integrity action plans. So the key message here is that there should be a political will for that in the first place to carry out similar initiatives on the ground. So once the municipality is identified, then we go out and assemble a team of various stakeholders, such as municipality leadership, the mayor, deputy mayor, or the head of the procurement unit, someone with the decision-making powers in the municipality. And apart from that, I think for us it's very important that the civil society is also involved, and I think several speakers today already alluded to this very important topic. So without CSO involvement, I think it's going to be quite hard to achieve any tangible results when it comes to fighting corruption. And media, of course, the media representatives, especially the local media who knows the local context on the ground, also could be the part of this broader group and coalition. So once we assemble a team of experts, of stakeholders, then we conduct corruption risk assessment. So we carry out interviews within the municipality structures, within various departments dealing with public procurement, delivery of public services, delivery of social assistance to the citizens, managing the local property, local municipality property, etc., etc. So once we do that, we carry out the interviews, and then the study also the regulations on the ground. So the local laws as well as the sub laws issued by the mayor or by the city council. So as a result of the combination of these various sources of information, we then come up with the strategy, the integrity action plan, which is normally it's from 2 to 3 years of duration, and then transfer the ownership of the strategy to the municipality. So the signature that you see on this integrity action plan is usually the signature of the mayor itself, and the integrity strategy includes specific deadlines, responsible parties for the implementation of every single step in the process. And such strategy already exists in Kutaisi. So with our help, we managed to adopt the strategy, I think in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, and it was signed in 2020. So these strategies has been adopted also in other 4 municipalities that I have mentioned in the beginning of my presentation. So a couple of examples of what this type of assistance entail. So, for example, on the screen you see on the left-hand side you can see that we have helped the municipality in Moldova, Straseni, to set up the live stream capacity for all its council meetings. So nowadays, if you would like to go and see in retrospective of any council meetings in Straseni municipality, you can just go to their YouTube channel and browse through the various recordings of the council meeting. On the right hand side, you can see that we have helped the Kutaisi municipality to purchase security cameras for the various halls and offices in the municipality to basically prevent any violation of law, of any violation of integrity. And these places usually are the places where the citizens come and deliver their documentations. Here you can see our meetings with the municipalities in Armenia, Echmiadzin, and Veles, North Macedonia, where we meet with the mayors and explain them the methodology and the strategy of how the municipality can be involved in the implementation of this initiative. And all of these municipalities now have the integrity action plans with very specific deadlines and action plans for the implementation. Great. We have also developed a toolkit, online toolkit, which is hosted on the corruptionfreecities.org address, and you can browse through different various risks of corruption in the municipalities, and if you click on any of those bubbles, you can get more information on how those corruption risks can be mitigated using the guide, which we also have produced. Now, this is my last slide, and if the time permits, Mikhail, I would like to also show a short video which lasts only for 1.5 minutes.
Maybe during the second round of questions, yeah, because as I mentioned at the beginning, we are we're operating under the very tight schedule. Thank you, Irakli.
Thank you, Mikhail.
It's really remarkable that you presented all your work done in support of the municipalities. In fact, introduction of the corruption risk assessment systems, as well as development of standalone anti-corruption action plans for the local governments, remain one of the key recommendations of the OECD ACN to Georgia and USAID. That time, predecessor to our project Good Governance Initiative. We worked with a couple of municipalities on introduction of the corruption risk assessment systems, as well as on development of the anti-corruption strategies and action plans. And within the current project under the USAID local governance program, we also plan to work with our partner municipalities to further expand the scope and bring these extremely important anti-corruption enablers to the subnational governments. So thank you again for highlighting all the positive aspects of that. Jose, once again, I want to thank you for your extremely cooperative mode and tireless efforts in support of the municipalities who embark on the commitments within the OGP local. And we work together in support of Georgia's municipalities, and I know the benefits of your counsel and advice. So thank you again. Can you give us your better sense of the major characteristics of the municipalities? What makes them successful in the OGP domain, as well as what motivates them to apply to this a brilliant program? Is it the fact that the program itself is popular, or they're genuinely committed to embark and embrace the values of the OGP? In fact, we've seen mixed examples. So, including in Georgia, that at the beginning, local governments are very enthusiastic, but at the end of the day, they drag feet to embark on very ambitious reforms. So, thanks.
Hi, thank you so much. It's great to see all of you and to be here and to see some good old friends. I kind of feel like this is a reunion of some sort. We keep buffing each other which is with great pleasure, of course, within the Georgian context and colleagues. So, and thanks for your questions. I think that they're very relevant and to a certain degree tough questions. So listen, at OGP Local, I think that all of you know it. It's a program that is not new to the degree that OGP has been engaging with local governments for more than 8 years now, I think 2015. Now, what is new is a recent expansion that we've had in the past couple of years. Now, within that expansion, we went from 20 local members to 106 members in the past 2 years, which is, I think, an incredible achievement. And it's not necessarily the achievement of OGP, because what we did is just open the doors wider for all of those champions at the local level to really come and join this global movement on open government. Now, we've seen through opening up, let's say, our doors, that there are a couple of interesting issues. One, there's the variety of the local governments that have joined OGP Local in the past 2 years has been amazing. From huge metropolis like Mexico City, which has millions and millions of people, from really small municipalities in Tunisia that one of them has only 10,000 residents in that locality. But what brings them together is their desire and their understanding that they need to do something different in how their government is run. They realize that despite the size of their governments, they all are tackling with really tough questions, really tough problems. They're, as has been highlighted before, they're all tackling with issues of trust, of corruption, of efficiency, especially now in tough times financially for many of us, how to deal with all these issues. And I think there is understanding that to do things different, one way to do it is doing collectively. Now, working in silos has never worked very well, and it works even less when we're talking about solving collective problems. So I think that that highlights as well, something that was mentioned before by Andy, by Helen, by Irakli, this need to think differently about how to tackle these problems. Now, what has made successful the participation of OGP Locals is related to, one, this understanding that things need to be different. I think that all of our members do have that understanding. Two, you have to have a willingness to change. In many cases, we understand what a problem is, but we don't necessarily have that will to try something new. So I think that those that are more successful are the ones that have that courage to try something new, to take risks, and to embark on a journey. Because it was also mentioned here before that many of these reforms are not magic bullets, are not one-time exercises that's going to resolve anything. It's a different way of doing things. And secondly, I think it's an issue about, putting in the effort and really joining in that path and understanding that doing things differently is going to take trial and error, and it's also going to take a lot of effort. There needs to be a bit of patience also to understand that things are not going to change from one day to the other. And this is a learning journey when you are within the OGP. It's much more than just being able to sign up to OGP Local, do a commitment, and then everything's going to be sorted out. It's really like I like to say, it's kind of like joining a gym. We all know that we need to get fitter, and of course we can work out at home, but also we can join a gym and have some benefits there. And what are the types of benefits? The type of benefits are being able to talk to other people about how to get fitter, how to do different open government issues. What are some, best practices? Also some recognition on the work that you're doing. Sometimes you walk into the gym after 6 months of working hard and somebody says, hey, you're looking stronger. And that's also good for motivation. And that's also part of what OGP, as a broader community of practice on open government, provides to its members. So I think that those are some of the characteristics and also some of the reasons that, local governments join OGP. But also, as any gym, in many cases, it is much simpler, or maybe we wish that, getting fit isn't so much hard work. And sometimes it is. It is quite hard work. I think most of the time it is hard work. So it's not necessarily an easy journey for everybody. Sometimes you realize of those challenges, sometimes context changes, both political, but also in terms of finances and situations. That makes that journey a little bit difficult for some more than others. And of course, depends on the support that they can get from civil society, that engagement that you can get from different internal and external actors, the political support, and the circumstances that may change the priorities. I think that makes it sometimes more challenging for some to join. I don't doubt that the people that have applied and joined OGP, in terms of those political leaders, but also, leaders in civil society and public officials, do have a genuine interest in doing things different. But sometimes that journey is a little bit tougher for some than others. And of course, that's why being part of this community is an advantage, to be able to support each other and praise and learn from the ones that are doing well and are perhaps naturally more fit, and then bring along the ones that may be struggling a little bit more.
Thank you, Jose. It's undeniable that OGP has proven to be an extremely valuable platform for the local governments as well as for the civil society organizations, since it promotes a co-creation. And one of the beneficiaries of the co-creation process is Ozurgeti municipality. And we would like to now zoom into Georgia, and particularly to Ozurgeti municipality, which I think it's fortunate to have a very powerful civil society, one of which is represented here, Tamar. Can you share your efforts in promoting transparency, accountability, and citizen engagement at the local level, highlight success stories as well as challenges in the Ozurgeti domain?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. So I'm honored to be part of this wonderful panel discussion, and thanks IDFI for inviting me. And also I'm very honored to speak on behalf of local civil society organizations and talk about some of major achievements that we have made in regards to open governance and transparency. So actually today I'm going to briefly talk about the best practices that we have achieved as a group and as an individual organizations in close partnership with Ozurgeti Municipality Assembly and Ozurgeti Municipality City Hall. So, and those are the efforts of this co-creation and co-participation. So I want to highlight, before actually I would speak to about individual instruments, I want to highlight that all the instruments that we have introduced to Ozurgeti municipality, they have been already institutionalized on local level. So even the donor projects, donor-funded projects, and they still exist and they still actively function on the Ozurgeti municipality level. So I want to remind to those who have less information about the municipality. So our colleagues abroad, Ozurgeti is a very small municipality located in the this is the administrative center of Gurvia region. This is southwest part of the Georgia, so along the Black Sea. So, total population is approximately 61,000. Actually, all these initiatives have been implemented on the local level, have led the municipality to OGP Global, and then to OGP Local, which is also, I'm really honored also to be part of the partner organization of OGP Local. So first, I'm gonna talk, and this is one of the first instruments of local, in regards to local governance, is the initiation of live transmission of municipality assembly sessions and posting full video recordings on the municipality website and official social media pages. And in addition to that, and this is the built-up instrument on the live stream, which is the SMS notification to remind the local population of the sessions, and this way foster their better participation. And to make their participation more active, municipality introduced a comment section where users can interact with the decision makers, ask questions, and send their feedbacks, and so on and so forth. Also with active engagement of local CSOs, transparency and integrity building strategy have been developed along with the monitoring and evaluation framework. And this is an important milestone for the municipality to strengthen transparency and good governance standards. And this way it's fight against the corruption. And also online petition platform was an initiative of local CSOs. And this is kind of, this created digital civic space for citizens to ask and for solution of community issues that they have identified. So far, up to 26 petitions have been submitted. And so this is really important for and this is quite good number for the municipality of Ozurgeti, considering its size. Actually, together, we, as a whole group of CSOs, we work with the local municipality communities to spread the knowledge about the local governance. And so I want to say the role of Ozurgeti, the parliamentary library, we are part of the process when we were going to certain areas to talk about the new innovative instruments introduced in Ozurgeti municipality to support their active engagement. And also I want to talk about one of the very interesting instrument. This is participatory budgeting instrument, and this is a online platform called BA Core Ruler. And this is a form of participatory budgeting, which entails the involvement of citizens in the decision-making process. They identify the community issues, especially infrastructural issues. Then they submit their proposals and then generate the votes and then get the funding. So this is the instrument where community members see the results of their efforts. So that's important to increase the role of civic participation. Actually, all of these were the instruments that supported the municipality to be part of the OGP global community and afterwards the OGP local community. As part of OGP local, I want to say that here with active participation of local CSOs, we have an opportunity to design and co-create the commitments. And later on, I also want to highlight the role of Council of Europe when they have recently initiated the new innovative tool of Civic Lab to identify local needs, and next commitments will be built on findings of this methodology. I want to use this opportunity and thank all the international donor communities, USAID, GGI, NDI, Council of Europe, for supporting Ozurgeti municipality's effort to be part of this open governance and transparency. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tamar. I think we can all agree here that Ozurgeti's municipality is one of the positive outliers when it comes to the OGP participation, and I hope other municipalities who are part of the OGP local, as well as the new ones who joined Kutaisi and Rustavi, will follow your suit. We have less than 20
Actually, I just briefly, before I would go to an end, I want to say a couple of words about the challenges that
go ahead. In 1 minute,
also
please.
what is important, and I agree to previous colleagues that lack of civic participation is the huge challenge here, because citizens like when they see the results, their efforts and their participation. So when they don't see the results of their participation, they think that it doesn't really make sense for them to be active. So that's also part of the lack of decentralization. And I hope that the continued efforts of civil society organizations and this decentralization efforts will lead to better local governance that will also be oriented to citizen participation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tamar. We have less than 15 minutes left for this panel, and now I would like to turn to the audience for the questions or brief comments. Do we have questions from the on-site audience? Please raise your hands. Yeah, Nino, here. Please pass the mic if you can. And also I would like to ask my IDFI colleagues if we have questions from the online participants to voice them after this question.
I don't know, it's type of a question and comment maybe to Andy, I think the first speaker, about deliberative democracy, because I have heard about this concept at another meeting, and it was very interesting and very nice to hear, but sometimes, you know, I think that this is maybe targeted at the audience, which is like us, a little bit civil society, a little bit public sector and academia, etc. Because sometimes I have a feeling that municipalities are not, how to say, not ready, but municipalities are not ready to digest such a complicated and complex ideas and concepts, and it should be broken down into small details and into mechanisms which works, rather than like approach municipalities with like complicated concepts. And my understanding is that this deliberative democracy is actually the same principles as like citizen participation, etc., etc. So I was wondering if you have thought about or have seen already in practice how it is delivered, how it is implemented in practice, and what can be applicable to Georgia.
Yep, that's a really good question. You're absolutely right. You know, what I'm saying today would not really resonate with a lot of local government, and it wouldn't resonate with ordinary citizens. But let me be blunt, your job as NGOs and those promoting democracy is to make sure it does resonate. You're the ones that need to push this. You're the ones that need to advocate on the ground for better democracy. One of the risks of talking about deliberative democracy and citizens' assemblies is they work really well in well-resourced democracies that have got a strong sense of civic participation. They're much harder to get off the ground in a developing democracy or somewhere where there isn't a culture of participation, and we have to recognise that. Now, do we have some guides on how to do this? Yes, actually, if you look at the work I've done with the Council of Europe, that's exactly what we've done. We've produced a report earlier this year looking at a number of examples of deliberative democracy. It's called Mapping Deliberative Democracy in Council of Europe member states, and you can Google it on their website. That's progressed into some work that's been done on the Committee on Democratic Governance around recommendations on what is good practice. Notice I say good, not best. There is no such thing as best practice. You need to talk about what is good for you. Don't blindly follow what somebody else does, particularly when it's France and the UK and Ireland. It's not appropriate. There are things you can learn, but don't copy. So the cultural fit for deliberative democracy is really important. So those recommendations show you what good deliberative process looks like, what needs to be there around choosing samples, around the governance process, around the structure of the debate and the facilitation. So that help is available to you. And there's also a lot of people out there doing this work. What you need to do is find the ones that understand how democracy works in Georgia and how you want democracy to work in Georgia, because we're not talking about slotting into what's there. We're talking about making what's there better and moving to a new level. But that's a process. It's not an event. It's a process, and it takes time. So the role of NGOs is to be the voice of better democracy, and to take the resources like the work I've done at the Council of Europe and like other projects around around Europe and elsewhere, mostly European actually in this area, and learn from them. And, you know, all of us that work in this field are really happy to talk to you about this and help you. That's why we're here.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy. More questions from the audience. Yes, Teona.
So thank you for a very interesting discussion, and actually my question is mostly about participation, because I remember from the previous panel as well that there is concern regarding lack of public participation, and we know this. But on the other hand, of course, we know this problem that exists, but also we have some cases when citizens are motivated when they see results. It was mentioned by several panelists. So in this case, what will be your recommendations towards NGOs and towards local government representatives as well? Maybe we should change our approach or some kind of communication mechanisms, or what should be somehow resolved, somehow considered, and what could be your recommendation for Georgian audience? Thank you.
Thank you, Teona. Who would like to take this question first? Helen, Jose?
Helen, you want to go first?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
So this is about which participation for... Sorry, could you repeat the last part of the question?
It's about the civic participation that we're all complaining that it's lacking, and what will be your advice to the civil society organizations, whether they need to change their tactics to promote civic participation, whether they need to...
Yeah, I was listening to the question. I have to confess, I thought it wasn't going to be for me. So, because, well, clearly one strategy is to ensure that we have the information that we need to be able to participate. That's terribly important. I mean, we've already heard that the Open Government Partnership, which I've just stepped off from 2 years on the steering committee of, the Global Steering Committee, I think it's been really interesting to see how it has advanced participation, but how much resistance there has been as well, how difficult it is for governments to do participation, how governments are not used to letting go of the ultimate say in, and I think Andy's point that you made in your first intervention about this isn't just a checkbox exercise, but it's something where governments have to demonstrate how they've taken into account the inputs received from citizens, justifying decisions. So I think that there are many ways of participating. There is participation through more structured exercises, but also just every day you hear that there's at the central or regional or local government level, there's a decision, someone requests information, they want to have their say about it. I think it's incumbent upon governments to ensure that they demonstrate how different kinds of evidence has been taken into account. So as well as actually trying to mobilize to do the participation, from the transparency side, having things like normative or legislative footprints, which require that governments document which evidence did you use and justify how the decision was taken and make that public. I think that can really help put the onus on governments to show that they're not just talking about participation, but they're actually taking into account what's being the inputs that they're receiving from different stakeholders. At another really basic level, if we genuinely want citizens to participate, having better websites where the information is easier to find is written in non-bureaucratic, jargonistic language. It's something that we struggle with in so many countries. So really thinking outside the bureaucratic box, and from civil society, getting campaigns. There's a big campaign in Spain now about clear language. It's inspired by what was done in the UK, Plain English, it's called. I don't know if you have a campaign for plain Georgian, but it's a recommendation to really encourage official documents to be written in ways that are comprehensible to the average person on on what's your main street called there? I've forgotten the name of the main street there, but so that everyone can understand, and that helps participation enormously. So demand clear language would be my other recommendation.
Thank you, Ellen. Do we have more questions from the audience? No. Then I would like to invite Irakli and Tamar, and would like to pose the question related to fight against corruption and the role of the civil councils. I mean, the Sacrabulus in the Georgian domain. So you worked with municipalities, and it will be very interesting to hear from you the involvement of the local legislators in the fight against corruption. So, do you have any positive experience on that? If not, what is needed to make them more active? Because this is one of the oversight mechanisms over the executive branch, and I would say this is one of the enablers to effectively fight against corruption. So, please, directly. And I would ask you to limit your interventions up to 1.5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mikhail. No, I think in all the cities where we worked, I think the first precondition for us to go and start even start anything, doing anything there, was to understand the readiness and the political will of the local officials. So without the prior buy-in from the government officials, I think it would have been impossible to achieve any results. So for us, it's almost must element of our intervention on the ground, to have a full buy-in from the local administrations. And then we go out and talk with the civil society organizations and other stakeholders on the ground. We also interview citizens who are the final, primary beneficiaries of everything that government does. So this is our experience. We don't even start to work in the environment when the national stakeholders are not ready to receive such support from our side.
Thank you.
Back to Mikhail.
Tamar.
So I will say briefly about my idea in regards how to expand the role of local municipality councils in regards to implementing and executing the open governance agenda. I would say that according to the Georgian law, have the obligation to undertake the overseeing functions on the activities of executive government. So I would say that recognizing the role and actually implementing it will be, and it will be the great that the municipality assemblies, municipal sacrabulos will strictly start implementing that overseeing role. Although according to the Georgian law, they have to do that. So that's important. Sometimes they are abandoning this role. Also, it's important to have also municipality assemblies to undertake control or monitoring on overseeing on the open governance instruments implemented by executive government. So that's important. So I think that the local municipality councils need to have more capacities, and they need to have more motivation and the willingness to undertake this role. So this way we will have better local governance. Otherwise, so actually the municipality assembly is the voice of public. So this needs to be in the shape of undertaking this overseeing role over the executive government.
Absolutely. It's cannot agree with you more. It's really important to increase the role and capacity, obviously, of the municipal councils to ensure the effective oversight. That's really important for upholding the values and principles of the open governance. And I have a last question, and I would like to bring in Jose into discussion. As we all know, the OGP is drafting a new strategy, 2023-2028. how the development of the new strategic document is going, and what is your expectation how the OGP local program will be positioned in the new strategy?
Thanks, a great question. So the process is going well. I do think that in the next couple of months, there's going to be a public consultation as well for the draft that we have moving forward. So do keep an eye on that. As you know, we are firm believers in participation, as well as the community, the broader global community on the work that we're doing. So I do think that there's going to be an increased focus as part of the new strategy on open government at the local level, because that's the trend that we're seeing, you know, from this past 2 years when OGP, you know, local had its expansion. So definitely it's going to continue to be an important aspect. I also feel that, and kind of going back to the question about participation, there's a lot of, you know, promise in exploring and further deepening what and the ways in which we can ensure citizen participation, giving some of these challenges, of course, is part of what, you know, being open is all about. And I hope that that's going to take a very important role as part of the new strategy as well. And just to give you an example from our OGP local members, the theme or the most popular area of commitments is citizen participation in comparison with the national. 35% of all commitments that we have now is about citizen participation, about inclusion in different areas of work, but particularly around service delivery, you know, bringing in marginalized communities, but also around climate and the environment. So, you know, I think that in hopefully, I believe, I haven't, you know, the strategy is not finalized, of course, but I do believe that we can expect a lot more of, you know, citizen participation, you know, depending on these thematic issues, and of course, you know, making sure that not only OGP members themselves are, you know, leading in open government, but the broader community of, you know, local governments and civil society organizations can also be part of this movement, you know, to bring in the great work that's been done, that, you know, Andy has just mentioned, the great work that Tamara has been doing, and of course, the great work that Irakli is supporting, and of course, Helen, you know, as you've always been a great supporter, we continue to enjoy your great support. And, you know, IDFI, a great partner that always has been USAID, everybody here. We very much look forward to continue to work within the new strategy on opening and deepening open government at the national and, of course, at the local level.
Oh, thank you, Jose. Thank you. I wish we had more time to dive deep into every single aspect you just raised during the panel discussion, but I hope next year, and I hope to see you all physically in Georgia in one panel to discuss all the nuts and bolts of the transparency, accountability, and citizen engagement. Unfortunately, our time is up, and let's give rounds of applause to our star panel for extremely thoughtful comments and reactions.
Thanks very much.
Our panel stands adjourned. Thank you.